Hello, friends. As you probably realized, we took a little bit of a hiatus over the last 3 months, and now, starting in July, the audio project with Deena Tearney is back. I want to say that I truly appreciate you, our listeners, and I'm looking forward to continuing our podcast conversations. All right, Darren, are we ready to go?
Yes, we're ready to
All
go.
right, let's do this. Peter Dooher in the house today on the podcast. Thank you for being here. So, Senior Vice President, Digital at Servco. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Yeah, I'm super happy to have this conversation. First off, I wanted to say you have a really impressive career. I was checking out, stalking you on LinkedIn. Plus, I know you, and I've heard you speak many times, and I'm always impressed with your stories, your background. Technical CTO from digital marketing, transformational, leadership, which I think is super impressive. Tell us about you. Tell our audience more about you and your background, and maybe starting with what you do now. Let's start with that, and then I'd love to hear more about your career story.
Great. Yeah, well, I'm super excited to be here and talk to you, and hopefully share some things we're working on and what we're all going through during this, unprecedented time. Right now I'm kind of in a role that I love. It's kind of the most in my 20 plus career is working for Servco Pacific. It's kind of like a dream come true in many ways, on a personal level and professionally too. So I joined relatively recently, about a year and a half ago, from New York, and Servco found me. And I've been to Hawaii many times, and I've always dreamt that possibly could we live here once we had our daughters, but I wasn't sure that could be a reality. And then
Are you from New York?
From New York, yes.
Okay.
I grew up on Long Island.
Okay, nice.
My wife's from New Jersey, so.
Cool.
Yeah, I always lived around New York, as a kid, and then college, and then, I could talk about my career going there, but, starting back, we'll go, I guess, forward back. With Servco, what I love, too, is, I came out of apparel just before Servco, is the parallels between automotive and apparel, and it's customer experience, the culture of the brand, and the brand-centric approach, and the people-first approach too, and the guest-first approach. So a lot of those parallels, and there's a lot of parallels between selling shoes and selling cars, as much as you may not think optically, but there's
the buying process,
the customer journey, how to personalize that, the high-touch aspect of it, even with technology as an enabler. So my role now is I oversee our digital team, which is comprised of product management function. We have a development function, which is kind of the first kind of time we've built an in-house dev team, which is really exciting, so we can run really quickly on things. Real big focus on data and analytics. So we have a really bustling data and analytics team that have backlog is just like from here to probably New York in terms of opportunities.
Love it, yeah.
Because we really believe you got to measure things to really understand where the opportunity sits. If you can't measure it, why go after it? Why do it even? Technology. So that's all of our technology services that support our customers, internal and external, and all of our digital presences. Whether it's our website or marketing channels or in-store operations.
It's a lot of stuff.
Systems. Yeah.
You look after a lot.
Honestly, much.
Like, okay, keep on going.
Yeah, and then, with all of this, leaning in heavily into data, it's, how do we maintain security of that information and respect, the integrity of the relationships we have with our customers. So security is a big focus as well. And
very cool.
Yeah, so we've got a team assembled now that's really, accelerating a lot of what we put in a plan, which we thought was like a 2 to 3 year plan, which ended up being a 2-month plan.
That's amazing.
And so we ran fast. We're running pretty fast on top of that to try and optimize everything we've put in the field, and we're learning a ton around.
Yeah, that's great.
Just whatever the new world is that we're all trying to navigate together.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, I was impressed with your background. I'd love to hear more about your tech. You had a CTO in your background, a lot of the marketing things. I'd love to dive into that and hear your story a bit. I think it's contextual to some of the things that I think I'd like to ask you about coming up soon, but give us some background on your journey.
Yeah. So I've always been super curious, and that also kind of leads to I never knew exactly what I wanted because I always wanted to learn about what's going on in some other industry or field. And luckily I studied physics in college, and that was a great foundation for.
Okay, I'm like, okay, it's a great foundation.
Yeah, because it really helps you break things down to the components and the scientific process, and you understand how things work You know, it's really at the core of physics, and they're really looking for the smallest component of what makes us who we are in the world what it is. Cool. Nonetheless, once I graduated college, I didn't want to follow my dad's footsteps initially because he's a physics professor. So I thought academia would be great, but I really wanted to go where things are happening and whatever the workforce was and learn, by doing. So I took a position with the company at the time was Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. And that was great. It was in a technology organization, and it was awesome because they just threw me into the deep end. I started to learn how to program, which I was a horrible programmer in college. I'm like, oh, now this is my life. But you can figure it out, and through that you start building things. So the creating aspect of it was really exciting for me.
What did you program?
Initially, I started my first position at the New York Times, and we were programming it was an ASP website for their for how they order their paper.
Got it. From
all of their suppliers. And that was just literally I'm reading a book and figuring out how I was writing this website. And then I moved on to, and that was great just being in the media industry, but in a very different perspective in the supply chain side of it. I moved over to transportation and was part of the team that built the first world ship application for UPS. And that was one of your classic, they commit to a project that's, it really should take 2 years, but you have to do it in 6 months. So it's working 7 days a week and sleeping in the office. And that was great, though, because I learned a ton, and we got it done. And that was a very successful product for many years for UPS and their customers. And I was there for a few years, and then, we caught wind of dot-com bubble, and the initial dot-com, 1.0 in 99. And so, we had an organization within Accenture that was helping startups. So we went out.
That was a whole thing.
That was a whole thing.
That was a whole thing.
At the peak and the bust, I was turning the lights on and turning the lights off. And that was a great experience because really learned every aspect of building an internet-first business. Right, we had server farm, on the floor next to me, and installing ERP systems, building a website from scratch. So you kind of just jump in wherever. Kind of you wear a ton of hats, and I love those experiences too because then you got to really get us into that entrepreneurial spirit, which. And that curiosity was what
was the name of that group? Was it what did they call it? It wasn't just emerging markets. They had a name for it back in those days.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember it.
I forgot what it was called, but that was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing.
It was a
whole
arm
tech function.
Yeah, that's
and then, cool. Similarly, I followed up with a startup after that in New York around the same time.
Nice.
Still with Accenture, and then I got between that and San Francisco, I really enjoyed traveling, and I said, well, let's go outside the U.S. And so I found a position still within Accenture in Italy, and that was a transformational experience. So that was a totally different industry. It was in manufacturing of home appliances, and I was kind of positioned between home appliances and working for a truck company, and they're all kind of internet website for spare parts for the truck company, and then on the home appliance side, we're building, kind of integrating an ERP with SAP, and then doing this demand forecasting system.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was sold as this guy from the U.S. who knew everything.
Knew everything about it.
I literally just went to training the week before, and I came with literally half my luggage was textbooks, for the system.
I love that.
Logistics, and it was great. We got it. Again, it was an intense project, but it was great. We got teams from all over the world working together, from Germany and Portugal.
Where in Italy was it?
It was in Fabriano, which is in Le Marche.
Ooh, do you speak Italiano?
Un poco,
you had to learn.
Sto lavorato in Italia.
Oh, wow.
15 anni fa, yeah.
Cool. How long were you there then?
I was for about a year and a few months.
Okay, awesome. That's
a
fair amount of
11th.
time.
Yeah,
oh, jeez. Okay.
But it was a great experience to just trying to work with technology and work with business process reengineering across multiple languages. So the Italians would speak Italian, the Portuguese would speak Portuguese, Spanish team would speak Spanish, and Germans would speak German. And I'm in the middle, trying to luckily all the technology was written in English.
Yeah.
So the code was written, so that was the great neutralizer. And that was managing a diverse team of developers too. It was a great experience. And I popped back to the U.S. for a bit, and then went back to work in the U.K. for a large grocery chain called Sainsbury's. I was one of there was a huge kind of outsourcing initiative there, so I was building another kind of website for their supply chain for all their kind of local farmers that could food to their marketplaces. And at that point, I was kind of like, wow, I could keep doing this travel thing for a while, but I kind of missed my family and kind of missed New York. So I looked for some opportunities back, and still with Accenture. So at that point, I got into retail coming back. So like big box retailer, again, doing more like forecasting, demand systems, supply chain.
Because of your supply chain
experience. Getting a lot of experience in that field. And kind of in and around the web too, which was kind of taken off in some of those retailers then. And then I popped over at West again for a little stint at Ross Stores, and then doing some more strategy work, and then I landed at J.Crew, and then I was there as a consultant again, leading up the IT strategy under the CIO, who was also from Accenture. And I loved it. I mean, it was like 2 years in when Mickey Drexler and his team was kind of really transforming J.Crew. It's talking 2006 now, and so
from a catalog,
right? But and kind of grew up with J.Crew as a and especially on the East Coast.
Yeah,
it's like everyone. It's like you're born with like a J.Crew catalog next to you.
Yeah.
And that was a phenomenal experience. I learned a lot about business. Transferring from the consultant side to the operator and side. Like as a consultant, it was really great because you implement something and then you're like, okay, what happened day plus one? Did it actually do what we said?
Yeah.
How did that thing actually pan out? How do you nurture? How do you kind of organize and manage the change of a team through any of those big systems integrations? And now I kind of like was in the middle of putting the plan together and owning it. And it was, there was a lot of failures in the outset, which I learned a ton from, and then there's a lot of successes that came out of that, and failures and successes and failures. But we kind of moved J.Crew, as best we could, along with the rapid pace of the business. And as you can manage from 2006 to probably 2012, it was kind of a huge trajectory up. And I loved it. I kind of people didn't see me just as a technologist either, because I tried to kind of resonate with what was important from the customer and business perspective, and really learned, by watching the team at J.Crew from the business side, what it meant to really, and there's a phrase that Mickey would always use, which I think Wayne Gretzky said it first, is, skate to where the puck is going. So always kind of have an eye on the future, whether it's products, services, technology too.
Yeah.
So that's really resonated with me in kind of my career.
You're always looking.
Yeah, kind of trying to figure out. And now it's like, I mean, the puck hit us right in the face. So you got to adapt, And so over the course of my career in J.Crew, I had a lot of different roles, from strategy to standing up a project management office to moving into running all the engineering and most, good portion of the operations for our e-commerce capabilities, which at the time was initially J.Crew, and then we launched Madewell.com, and then Factory, and then I later took on the store systems support. So it's kind of in charge of all that customer-facing technology.
So how was it to switch from the consulting to sitting on the other side of the table? You mentioned it a little bit, but
it was humbling. It's very, because you kind of realize you're planning not just for a due date, like it's never done. So you're it's not really just like delivery and move on. It's okay, now you got to run this, you got to optimize it, you've got to adapt it, and building a team was also a big aspect of it. So one of my still probably my best mentor said technology or any of these kind of big systems and organizations that have a tech force, it's 99% about the people, and it's 1% about the tech. And as you know, the tech changes like
100%
on a dime, and so I really focused on developing those skills as a leader, and a manager and a developer of others, which is where most of my passion is now.
That's cool.
Is making sure the people amongst us, that we're responsible for sharing or peers with or whatever, they're growing and developing in their personal and professional careers, and that because without the team, you can't get it done. Right?
Exactly. So. Well, I think that's awesome. Especially, great that you're here in Hawaii too, because we need leaders and people that can do that. And I know you're involved in a lot of things, not just to help people at Servco, but even beyond and in our community to help develop skill. And I think that's great. It's exemplary. Like we all see it, so it's awesome.
Yeah, that's was one of the big draws here, is to hopefully help in some way. Bring some of my background or expertise and just share that knowledge and hopefully help develop.
Yeah.
In any way, the community that we're trying to develop here,
yeah.
right? Especially as we're looking for, alternates to our economic future. I mean, technology is a big enabler of that, and I think we have a great opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thanks for the background. It sounds like a lot of definitely IT experience, which is awesome. Yes. Retail, consumer goods. What industries? What else? I mean, lots of consumer goods, retail.
Yeah, like retail, consumer goods, manufacturing.
Nice.
Media, entertainment, transportation.
That's what I love about consulting. You get to really see a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess with that background, what I wanted to ask you is, in this climate, particularly right now, there are a lot of retail organizations, and I think you've got some great, obviously, a lot of depth and background throughout your career. I think a lot of retail organizations might be struggling right now in areas where you have some expertise. So what would you be thinking about or doing, as a leader of maybe a chief marketing officer, maybe a chief technology officer, for something that's more of a brand, like a Nike, who powerful brand, they're in the, this and that's going on, and they're doing some really interesting things even right now, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts. Maybe some things you've done in the past. What would be going through your mind if you were running a brand like that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, the most important thing now is maintaining that relationship we have with our customer base, right? And we built so long and hard to kind of get to a level where that brand it resonates with their lifestyle, the authenticity of it, and really, like, how do we create and continue that empathetic relationship with that customer, and where are they in their lives now, right? I mean, Nike is a great example because it's such a brand about mobility and inspiring that individual athlete in all of us, which is, and now you think of, if I was in Brooklyn in my very small apartment, how do I continue that sense of brand relationship when I can't go outside for a run, I can't go to a gym, I can't be in these large classes where I'd love to have share community. So how do you bring that to where I am now, in a 400 square foot space? And so I think what they've done, I mean, I know, people at Nike over the years, kind of their pivot to digital and direct to consumer has been, phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
And I think they've been just putting that, into, sixth gear, and over the last few months, and things that they've done, like, what I love, they have that subscription service. I think it's the Nike Training Club, and they opened it up free to all their customers. So kind of building that community. Adjacent to that, one of our brands, Fender, with Fender Play, did something very similar. Kind of opened up free subscription for people to learn and play instruments online while they're at home. So it's kind of like, going back to that skate to where the puck is going. To where is the customer now in their
how do you connect with them
in a relationship with themselves, with their family, their friends, their community, and how do we remain relevant and also help augment that and create that, especially in retail, right? Because so much retail there's a bit of therapy in it too. And then a brand like Nike is beyond just its products, that they have phenomenal services and community. So how do you pivot that community to be something that's very much now an indoors kind of experience and very virtual. So I think they've done phenomenal with that. Another thing which is pretty cool, I know they had on their roadmap, was using advanced technologies like a kind of pivot of augmented reality. I know they were in the works of developing this app where you can, and I think it's off the Nike app, where you can look at your foot, and then you can put the shoe, you can put your phone over your foot, you can see the shoe on your foot, and they pulled that forward. So now, it's similar. How do you take products to the customer in a way where they can't go to the showroom and try it on, right? And then the same with a lot of the things I know around, which a lot of brands are doing, which is curbside pickup or buy online, ship from store, pick up in store in a very safe and convenient way. Because I think right now convenience and safety are paramount for any of those relationships with products and services that brands offer. And those things I think are fantastic. And then when you look at contactless, how are they pivoting there with contactless checkouts or self-checkout? So, similar to where Amazon's gone with the Amazon Go stores, and so I know they're moving into that space too, and that's in many cases that was there as an option, maybe before the pandemic, and now it's kind of the core way people are going to want to relate to purchases. And then of course the ease of returns, the ease of the reverse logistics, when everything's coming to your house, how do we make sure that's an easy. If you want 30 shoes and you send back 2, it's just no problem, because in the store, you'd be doing that in the fitting room. And so how do we take that fitting room experience to your house?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the same with like modify. I know they've been working to modify a lot of their classes, which were predicated on large format, but to now smaller format. So how do you take a yoga class for 30 and now it's like it's literally you and a screen? And how do you still build that engagement around it? And so I think that they're a great example, of a lifestyle brand that's really pivoting and adapting to how their customers' lifestyles have been inherently altered through this.
And they have a strong brand, and you're right. I think people have a really strong relationship with them, and I think that they capitalize on it as best in those ways, and that's the key thing.
And similarly too, it's being not tone deaf either, right? So I think it's how you communicate too, and I think when you think of everything else that's going on with with COVID, but also with Black Lives Matter and all that's happening around injustice and inclusion, and I think they've been very proactive in being a part of that conversation with their customers, and so you become much more a trusted partner, and not just a place where I buy a product or a service. It's a relationship is really a huge aspect of it.
Very true. So maybe flip it a little bit on this. What would you be doing right now if you, let's see, were managing or leading a chain of boutiques like maybe Sephora? So resellers, not necessarily brand as like I make my own product, but in the other sense where they've got a selection of amazing brands, and they themselves are their store brand, but like they carry all these amazing brands. Like, what would you be thinking of and doing at a moment like this? In that situation?
It's similarly like if you're selling a line of products where by design it's meant to to try on and even have someone demonstrate it for you. That experience is totally altered now, right? You're not sitting at a beauty counter.
It's not gonna look the same.
The lipstick. You're not getting the same type of physical kind of connection with the specialist. And it's interesting, because I was reading an article recently about the typically in recessions, there's this lipstick index, which I think Estee Lauder's.
Oh, cool! I got to hear about this.
Yeah, so typically in recession, like lipstick sales go up. It's kind of like again
That's
going back
awesome.
to retail therapy. It's like something makes me feel good. But think with the pandemic now, everyone's wearing a face mask. So lipstick sales have dropped precipitously. However, mascara sales have gone up, or do-it-yourself kind of hair or coloring or hair product sales. So you think of the things that you typically go to, and nails as well. So it's kind of, again, going back to that skate to where the puck is going. So because of the pandemic and the fact that the retail experience is essentially shut for a lot of those services which we would go to, and now those services are being done at home, and the product assortment's shifting. So I think as a boutique, which lines really are resonating with what the customer is experiencing now, what they can give them that sense of therapy or elevate their life for a little bit, make them feel good. How do we move those products in? And then in terms of how do you do alternate views of demonstration? So I know they some of the boutiques are demonstrating with like Instagram Live or doing kind of Zoom tutorials or how-tos or DIY. So creating really rich content is more important now than ever, because I think a lot of people have a lot of time to consume a lot of content. And so content creators I think are really important for those boutiques and brands, and whether they do it first in-house, which would be preferred because it's the authenticity is there. If they know the shopkeeper, or they know the stylist, or the person at the counter with demonstrating all the lipsticks or putting or what beauty to apply, how do you bring them into your house, and an experience that still resonates? And going back to that convenience to it, how to send 30 lipsticks at their to try and have no risk returns, and so and then schedule a Zoom or something where they can go through it. So we have to kind of adapt to where our eyeballs are now, which is all on our phones and our computers and all on Zoom and all.
Well, that's an interesting thing. with everyone having more time to consume more content than probably ever before, there's also been this enormous amount of content that's just all over. How do you, I think it's hard for people to kind of stand out in the middle of all of that because there's a lot of noise. I felt like there was already a lot of noise beforehand, like on certain platforms. I'd just be like, gosh, it's just a lot. And then now it's even more. What are your thoughts?
I think there it's interesting. You kind of think of collaborations, influencers. To your point, how do you cut through all of this content and everyone's going for the same target audience? You kind of, what is their network, right? So I think interesting. I've seen some push to kind of using certain people to do master classes, whether it's a chef doing a wine tasting pairing, or if it's someone in beauty that's also was quasi-celebrity, but also can demonstrate those products and has that network of followers. So content is not only personalized to the interests of that group that you want to target, but it also you cast a wider net than doing it all first party through your own channels, which nonetheless I think it's interesting. And I think of our brand now, our first channels are really doing well, and I think when you have that longevity of a brand with a lot of stickiness and trust in your relationship, really lean in heavily on making that content available on your first party. But for a small brand that doesn't necessarily have that, how do you get exposure, in a field where everyone's trying to use some of these techniques to maintain and build new relationships with their customers. So it's no easy answer, but in some ways, you're using Instagram, using Facebook, some of the, to also the shopping aspects within and doing some of those demonstrations and getting those things on all channels, as you create that content. I think it's, you have to kind of push it and grow it. But I would also, also going to need help, with either, other brands that are more established or with marketers, influencers, to continue to build that network.
Just wanted to pick your brain a little bit on this too. Any thoughts on Gen Z, the buyers of tomorrow? Or maybe they're buying now. I mean, Gen Z is what, teens right now?
I mean, it's, I don't know the answer. I just build a platform that can pivot really quickly, because I mean, who would have thought TikTok was a thing, a year ago, and it may not be a thing in a year, So I think it's, you want to figure out how to bring them into the conversation early. I think, in our case, we think of how do you kind of build towards that? It's more of an approach than knowing what the answer is. It's, how do you start to build relationships with them, in ways that they become part of the conversation of figuring out what types of problems and solutions need to be figured out for them. Whether it's through internships or outreach or engaging in the community, and kind of, it goes back to curiosity. Like, go out there and see what they're doing, because
it's crazy.
I mean, unfortunately, I spend most of my time with 6-year-old twins, so I kind of have a gap between 6 and 22.
Well, it's weird because is Gen Z the first generation that is all tech, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of my daughters, they're going to be. I mean, they're distance learning, right? All last spring, and in many cases throughout the world, but continuing, in some fashion for the foreseeable future. So that where in some cases people were doing no tech in school, it's now the primary channel for content and education, providing these services. So they're so much more savvy. There's so much more data being collected by them at an early age, and that. That data over time, becomes kind of their fingerprint, essentially of their life. And so, I think, with digital and with looking at tech, I mean, you have to, the mobility is a big aspect of where you have to have the conversation and continue to re-engage there, but connect the channels, so it's, I would say we all know mobile first, but it's really a kind of mobile first, second, maybe fifth, sixth, and seventh days, because there'll be some offline and interesting pivots. There'll be some, and again, it's like it goes back to where are the eyeballs today? What are the 3 or 4 apps that they engage with? Make sure we're kind of just there monitoring, listening, watching, learning, being curious about what the world looks like through their eyes. And I think it's again going back to kind of taking a platform approach, though, because once you're there, things will pop. You'll get some ideas. you need a platform that's agile and can adapt. And it's where, like, when you think of big platform providers that are in that space, like a Salesforce is a great example. You kind of invest in those. You don't know where we're going, but we're going to have a process and platform that'll adapt with us on our way there, and we'll be able to see where that puck is, and we'll be able to pivot to hopefully meet it at the pass.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's definitely the right way to go. When for us, like when a lot of our customers, when COVID-19 first happened in like the March, when the lockdown started to happen, if the customers were already on Salesforce, they found a much easier time adapting to some quick thing that they needed to do for their customer. Yeah. Tracking something new, calling them down and tracking that information, and it was or going live agent and live chat, they had the framework, and so adding on was much faster for them. And so I think that's a good point. Like in general, even with your marketing strategies, like having some way that you've created the platform that allows you to kind of move when you need to. And
then just gather all the data you can, even if you don't know what you're going to do with it.
You're in the data mode right now, which is awesome.
Track it all, because I think that, and then use advanced tech to help you make sense of it. We're leaning in heavily on machine learning and artificial intelligence to try and understand our customer's journey with us, so we can create the best next experience for them, and also understand what's not working equally, and so we can help improve that on their behalf and our business behalf. And that's internally facing too. I think we're all going through a stressful period within our organization, and we're working a lot harder to figure these things out, because it's kind of the pace. I feel like we have this funny thing, like a week is a day, or like a week is now a day is like a week, a week is now like a month.
Yeah,
it feels like
I lost all track of time. I'm like, wait, that was yesterday? Yeah. I thought that was like a month ago. It's just it's all a blur.
But I also feel we're kind of more productive now in certain ways, but maintaining that touch with each other is equally important as with your customer, because we're all building relationships both internally and externally through this. And
well, you're really good at doing that. I can see that with the meetings and stuff that we've held around the community and trying to ramp up different things. And so it's cool. Entrepreneur Sandbox.
Sandbox is great.
For sure.
I can't say enough. Like, capture all the data you can.
Yep.
And it's a great one on the Gen Zs. Like, if we can just figure out what behavior patterns are important to them, what things about a brand make a brand important to them? Is it less about the product and services and more about community? It's more about where they stand on issues. It's more about transparency. Which are all things all a brand should be great at with their customer base.
I've been hearing that they're very design and buy, right? They're very. It's like what they want. They're used to just, this world where they could pick their colors and pick everything that they want.
And that's the personalization aspect's a huge component. And that's again, going back to platforms, like you really want to make sure with that data you can have an intersection of, building that one-to-one relationship at scale, and then, and pushing that to all your channels with that customer. And to your point, I think, it's the individual aspect of personalizing everything is, and I think that'll become even more apparent in where we are now. Because you're home, we're less with each other, we're more with ourselves, and that degree of personalization is very important right now. To kind of create.
Any other thoughts you'd like to share with our audience?
I think be adaptable, right? Move. Just be ready to change on a dime. The agility side is so important. I stated, the beginning of this, it's like every day was a new discovery, and I think it goes back to the, when things normalize, don't lose that sense of adaptability and agility.
That's a really good point.
Which has gotten us through this, but we don't want to kind of come back to that kind of let's just go at a pace.
We're back to normal.
Dysfunction, kind of going, slow things down. I think that entrepreneurial spirit, that curiosity is so important. Which is really what's at play today for those who are making it through everything. Because everything is new.
I
think that's one thing I want to come out of this for everyone is just wow, when we had no alternative to kind of come up with a solution, we figured it out and came up with a solution.
Yep.
I was reading an interesting article about the engineers who were kind of finishing the new Toyota Sienna, and I guess they were pretty much mostly far along, and I think they're based out of Michigan, and like when this hit, they're like, we got to finish the car, and so they pretty much figured out a way with 3D printing and their own design kits at home through a lot of video meetings to kind of finalize the design for a pretty complex machine, whereas in the past they would have a lot of testing, learning, and interaction with each other, and so that adaptability is phenomenal when you think of it. At that
so
level
keep
of
pushing
complexity,
yourself.
because you can do it.
You are 100% right.
Yeah.
When forced, you can make it happen. Yeah.
And it's been great to one of the things I think is also important is looking at those communication platforms. That as well as those platforms for maintaining, building your community culture, your company's culture. Those are super important now. We were lucky with the platform we selected, Slack, which allowed us to really in this crisis communications move really quickly and share information, and it's been a big unlock, especially in a distributed workforce. And
I think that's the key takeaway of the day. Like, don't forget it, right? We're gonna play this back and be like, remember how it was.
How we did that.
Yeah, exactly.
We did that really fast. It was good, and it helped our customers.
Absolutely, you can do it when forced. So let's figure it out. No, I love that. All right, well, Pete, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Your background, like I said, I think is very relevant for a lot of use cases, and thanks for sharing your thoughts. And we'll continue the conversation, I'm sure, in the future. Wanted to end with a little fun thing. Some guest hot takes. Okay. So I'll give you a couple phrases. There's only a few, so don't worry. And then you can give me the first thoughts that pop into your mind. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Okay. Favorite color?
Blue.
LinkedIn.
Always on it.
Facebook.
Not as much.
QR codes.
Still a fan. There's a use case for them. Yeah, I know.
Nice.
Some people say they're kind of long. And
I wanted to see what you thought of that.
We're finding, like, I was talking to one of our GMs the other day. We're like, this is a QR code use case. Yeah. So, hey, look, sometimes old tech comes back.
Hey, for sure. Pop-up shops.
Love them.
Yep. Influencer marketing.
See the value. I mean, it's I definitely see the value. Even in our industry, I think I could see how it does drive performance. It's really got to be done at the individual out level, and not the brand. It feels like the brand is being unauthentic with it. So
I love how thoughtful you were. You were like, you paused on that one, and you're like, no, I've seen this done a few different ways.
I've seen it working. Even in our business, I see it working really well in certain cases.
All right, cool. That's all I have.
Oh, great.
Thank you. Yeah. All right.